It really feels like we can't go a single week without some Republican getting exposed for something that they did, hypocrisy or a literal crime. Last week, we learned that Michigan State Representative Josh Shriver, who's spearheading the movement to ban all porn in his state, actually loves porn himself, allegedly. I'm so shocked. An account linked to the gay-faced Republican's email address was discovered on a sex cam website, with him taking particular interest in categories such as fetish and group sex. Now, despite the evidence, he denies that that's his account, but we all know the truth. Josh, we didn't even need this story to know that you had some freaky shit going on behind the scenes, because whenever you hyper-focus on sex and make it your life's mission to police the behavior of consenting adults, I think that everybody knows you're repressing some kind of urge yourself. But the week before that, a different conservative was exposed for something much, much worse, to put it mildly. Craig Gleason, who's written for outlets such as The Daily Wire, has been charged with child molestation after accusing LGBTQ plus people of grooming children. Turns out he was the predator all along, not drag queens. But it's a new week, so that, of course, brings a new Republican scandal. And this time, it's young Republican leaders whose Telegram messages have been obtained by Politico, and they're about what you'd expect, right? Politico reports, quote, "I love Hitler. Leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat," and they report they referred to black people as monkeys and the watermelon people, and mused about putting their political opponents in gas chambers. They talked about raping their enemies and driving them to suicide, and lauded Republicans who they believed support slavery. William Hendricks, the Kansas Young Republicans vice chair, used two variations of the N-word more than a dozen times in the chat. Bobby Walker, the vice chair of the New York State Republicans at the time, referred to rape as, quote, epic. Peter Giunta, who at the time was chair of the same organization, wrote in a message sent in June that everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. Giunta was referring to an upcoming vote on whether he should become chairman of the Young Republican National Federation, the GOP's 15,000-member political organization for Republicans between 18 and 40 years old. Now, I just want to stop for a moment and ask, are any of you surprised? Like, even at all? Tiny bit? No? Because I'm not. When they talk about the extremism on the left, understand that they are gaslighting you. It is a deflection tactic. And ironically, they melt like snowflakes whenever people correctly call them fascists, but behind the scenes, they're joking about how they want to put people in gas chambers. But maybe, like, we shouldn't be calling them fascists after all, not because that doesn't fit, it does, but because I think it's more accurate to call them Nazis, because that's what they want to be, clearly based on these texts. And as you read through some of their text messages, it becomes very clear who these people are. And while they cloak their messages in irony and semi-seriousness, it's evident that it's what they believe deep down, and I think that the humor is merely a facade that they use to cope with the fact that they know they're the bad guys. But let's read some more. So the exchange that they talked about in that last portion with Giunta becoming the chair and wanting to put people in gas chambers, I just want to read that because, like, what they say is so crazy. So Peter Giunta says, everybody that votes no is going to the gas chamber. But he also says, and everyone that endorsed but then votes for us is also going to the gas chamber, okay? Bobby Walker says, when do we start bullying, dude? And in response to Bobby's question to Peter about why you'd gas someone that voted for you, Peter responds, I'm going to create some of the greatest physiological torture methods known to man. We only want true believers. So he's actually like a cartoon villain. Joe Maligno, the general counsel for the New York State Young Republicans, writes, can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. And Kay Katie, national committee woman for New York, says, I'm ready to watch people burn. Sounds like a nice person. Joe follows up saying, we gotta pretend like we like them. Hey, come on in, take a nice shower and relax. Boom, they're dead. Yeah, just totally normal behavior for future Republican Party leaders. Come on, don't act like you've never talked about torturing and burning and murdering people like a sociopath in your private group chats. We've all done it. I just, again, I cannot overstate how unsurprising all of this is. It's not shocking at all to me that the modern day equivalent of Hitler Youth are Nazi posting in their private group chats. But to be fair, I don't want to overgeneralize. I'm sure that not all young Republicans behave this way. Even though there are multiple states represented in these group chats, Kansas, Vermont, New York, and Arizona. But I'm sure not all of them are unapologetic fascists behind the scenes, right? I'm sure that within the entire 15,000 member organization, there's got to be at least like one or two of them who don't use slurs and only deny the reality of systemic racism. And perhaps there's a moderate evangelical in the mix somewhere in one of these states who doesn't want to kill LGBTQ people and just wants to take away all of their civil rights. Like, one can only hope, right? I'm sure they're all just not super extreme like what we're seeing in these group chats. It's just a, misrepresentation. In all seriousness, these individuals in leadership positions are giving us a glimpse into the predictably fascistic culture that they're cultivating. These are extremist leaders who are cultivating this behavior. So in reality, I wouldn't be surprised if all of the members align with this. I mean, if you support Donald Trump, who ran on mass deportation and explicit fascism, odds are this kind of humor, if we're going to be charitable enough to call it that, is going to appeal to you. But I mean, we have barely scratched the fucking surface, because Politico continues, the group chat members spoke freely about the pressure to cow to Trump to avoid being called a rhino, the love of Nazis within their party's right wing, and the president's alleged work to suppress documents related to the wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein's child sex crimes. Quote, Trump's too busy burning the Epstein files, Alex Dwyer, the chair of the Kansas Young Republicans, wrote in one instance. So they know that Trump is covering up for pedophiles, and they're just not saying that publicly. Write that down. They continue, mixed into formal conversations about whipping votes, social media strategy, and logistics, the members of the chat slung around an array of slurs, which Politico is republishing to show how they spoke. Epithets like the F slur, the R slur, the N word appear more than 251 times combined. In one instance, Walker, who at the time was a staffer for Ort, the New York Republican Party state Senate minority leader, talked about how a mutual friend of some in the chat dated this very obese Indian woman for a period of time. Gunther responded that the woman was not Indian, she just didn't bathe often. Samuel Douglas, a state senator from northern Vermont and the head of the state's Young Republicans, replied to Gunther. In a separate conversation, Gunther shared that his flight to Charleston, South Carolina landed safely. Then he offered some advice for his fellow Young Republicans. If your pilot is a she and she looks 10 shades darker than someone from Sicily, just end it there. Scream the no-no word, Gunther wrote. In another exchange, Dwyer, the Kansas chair, informs Gunther that one of Michigan's Young Republicans promised him the group will vote for the most right-wing person to lead the national organization. Quote, great, I love Hitler, Gunther responded. Dwyer reacted with a smiley face. Jesus Christ. Again, still not surprised by any of this. They also used slurs against Hispanic people and Asian people, unsurprisingly. They joked about rape being good. Basically, whatever mean-spirited racist thought the darkest human mind can concoct was vocalized in these group chats. But it's important to understand how covert they are in their bigotry, right? Because publicly, they still distance themselves from explicit white supremacy, even though the mask slips from time to time. But privately, they're all in on white supremacy and enthusiastically pro-Nazi and pro-Hitler. And to demonstrate just how diabolical these people are, they talked about delegitimizing an opponent's campaign by linking them to white supremacy disingenuously, but realized that that plan could actually backfire because they might end up making that person more appealing to their own organization. I'm not joking. I just want to read the exchange so you understand the depths of the depravity that we're fucking dealing with here. Politico continues, one was a late July message where Luke Mossaman, the chair of the Arizona Young Republicans, mused about how the group could win support for their preferred candidate by linking an opponent to white supremacist groups. But Mossaman then realized that the plan could backfire. Kansas's Young Republicans could end up becoming attracted to that opponent. Quote, can we get them to start releasing Nazi edits with her, like pro-Nazi and fascism propaganda, he asked the group. OMG, I love this plan, Rachel Hope, the Arizona Young Republicans Avenge chair, responded. Quote, the only problem is we will lose the Kansas delegation, Mossman said. Hope and the two Kansas Young Republicans in the chat reacted with a laughing face to the message. Listen, if I knew that the political organization that I was a part of would like a candidate more if they were tied directly to fascism and white supremacy, I would personally think twice about my association with that organization and the type of people that I am cultivating to be part of this group. And I'd be a tiny bit introspective, but I mean, of course, that's because I'm not a Nazi, whereas these people very much are indeed Nazis. So to them, Nazism is appealing, I guess, because they think that they're part of the master race. And judging by their pictures as well, it's clear that they're not just ugly on the inside. We'll put it that way. Hate really does age you. And I've got to imagine that the hate they feel in their hearts for marginalized people stems from their own inadequacy, right? That inadequacy that we know they feel every time they look in the mirror. And I think that they know that they're irredeemable pieces of shit who will inevitably die alone since nobody likes them and wants to be around them. So if they can make marginalized people as miserable as they are, maybe they think that they're going to get some sort of sick, sadistic satisfaction out of it. But making everyone else as miserable as they are is not going to fill the hole in their cold, dead hearts, although misery does love company, as the saying goes. But unfortunately for these dipshits, the chickens have already come home to roost. And I say that because one of them wrote in these texts that if these text messages were ever released, they were cooked for real, in their own words. And I'm happy to report that that is indeed already the case. Some of these Neanderthals have already been let go from their positions or lost job opportunities because of this article. And I think that the lesson that I really want MAGA to take away from this story is that actions do still have consequences. See, Trump might be able to get away with whatever he wants, but you are not Donald Trump, so you cannot. But the problem is that Trump emboldened the worst people like them, and our culture has been poisoned as a result of it because everybody thinks it's okay to vocalize every hateful thought that comes to mind. So Trump, since he probably doesn't have an internal monologue, he can't control it. And he just blurts out every dumb racist thing that he wants to say. But these people don't get to do that. Like, they still have to think before they speak, even in DMs, because the fascist tech companies that their leader is emboldening is going to have access to all of this. Everything that we write online could very well be seen, regardless if it's public or not. So I think that these text messages, it's funny because for them to believe that they would never get out is naive, right? Either way, they're all letting their freak flags fly right now because the modern day Nazi movement does have all the power in this country, but they better enjoy it while it lasts because when things swing back around, and they will swing back around, it's going to be the left's turn for revenge. So everything that these people are doing now will eventually come back to bite them in the ass. The days of going along to get along and putting aside our differences are fucking done. Liberals and the left and even centrists are done, especially after you all destroyed this fucking country. One day MAGA is going to be defeated just like their Confederate and Nazi predecessors were defeated as well, because as cynical as I feel right now because of what these dickheads have done to our country, I still do believe genuinely that good people will prevail in the end because there's more of us than there are of these dickheads. So I'm glad that they were exposed, but I mean, I kind of feel like this just confirms what we already knew about these people.